Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the regular meeting of your Alamosa City Council. We will call this meeting to order and recite the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, if I don't make a mess of this, we can have roll call, please. Start voting, please. Christy?
We have a quorum with 7 councilors present.
Thank you, Christy. Next up is the agenda approval. Are there any changes, additions, or deletions to the agenda? Christy?
Staff would like to pull from consent calendar A, the first one, C1A. We just want to provide a little bit of a staff information in addition to what was presented in the letter.
Thank you, Heather.
I'll
entertain a motion.
With that, Mayor, I'll make the motion we approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Start voting, please. Christy?
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Christy. Next up is citizen comment. This is the portion of the meeting where the Alamosa City Council welcomes your comments. Citizens wishing to speak may obtain and complete a speaker card through the city clerk at the start of the meeting. At this point in time, I don't have a card, and so we will dispense with that and move up to ceremonial items. And we have our police department here. Chief, would you do the honors for us, please?
Good evening, Council and Mr. Mayor. Wait for everybody to get up here. Tonight, we're here to introduce two new employees and advise you of 3 new promotions that we've made recently. I know traditionally that we have allowed family members to pin their badges on their chests. At this type of introduction, we're going to have a ceremony on the 16th of July over at the training center, and I'd like to invite all of you and staff to attend that, and we're going to have the family members do it then instead of tonight since we have such a big crowd. So first I'm going to do promotions, and I'll do them by rank. The first one, Sam Mestis. He was promoted to captain on June 2nd, 2014, and he's my operations commander. A little bit about Sam. He was born and raised in Monte Vista. He graduated from the Monte Vista High School in 1991, so he is a Valley native. He attended and graduated from Trinidad State Junior College Law Enforcement Training Academy in 1996. He began his law enforcement career in 1996 with the La Jolla Police Department, and then he was hired by our agency in the city in 1999. He's held several positions with our agency. He's been an on-call investigator. He did that assignment for 9 years. He served 2 years with the traffic unit when they had one. We used to have a traffic unit. He did 2 years with that. He did 3 years as a field training officer. He's been on the SWAT team for 11 years, and he's currently the commander of the SWAT team with this assignment as a captain. He was promoted to corporal in 2008 and then promoted to sergeant in 2011. And like I said, he was promoted recently, June 2nd, to the rank of captain. Sam has an associate's degree from Columbia Southern University, and he plans to continue on to get his bachelor's degree. He is a proud father of 2 boys, Tyler and Jace, who he says are his teddy bears. And those are his words. Sam has dedicated his law enforcement career to his late father, Sam O. Mestis, Sr., and his 2 sons. So Sam was promoted, and I'd like to recognize him for that. So next, I'd like to introduce to you Joey Spangler. He was promoted to the rank of sergeant on June 30th, 2014, so just on Monday. Joey was born in Chula Vista, California. He was raised in Alamosa, though. He attended high school here, correct, Joey? Yes. Okay. And he married his high school sweetheart of 13 years, and they have 3 daughters, Maya, Chloe, and Jada, who's 20 months. Maya's 7, and Chloe is 5. He began his law enforcement career with the Alamosa County Sheriff's Office, where he obtained the rank of corporal before leaving, and he was also a field training officer. He was hired by our agency in December of 2008. He's a less lethal and stop stick instructor for our agency. He is a field training officer. He didn't write down for me what year he made corporal, so I'm just going to tell you he eventually made corporal. He's been on the SWAT team for 4 years, and he is now the assistant team leader for the SWAT team. He's participated as an investigations team member for the last 4 years. And here recently, if you remember, we awarded him a Medal of Commendation and a Life-Saving Award earlier this year. He too has his associate's degree, and he obtained that in December of 2013 through Columbia Southern University. So I'd like to introduce to you Joey. Next will be our corporal promotion, and Brendan Pashone was promoted to the rank of corporal on June 30th, 2014. Brendan grew up in the Denver metro area. He moved here in 2005 after he graduated from the Lakewood High School in the Denver area. And he attended Adams State University, where he earned his Bachelor of Arts in Sociology in 2009. He attended the Trinidad State Junior College Law Enforcement Academy and graduated in 2009. And he began his career with the Del Norte Police Department also in 2009. In May of 2010, he began his career with our agency. He served as a patrolman specializing in traffic safety. He is a radar and LiDAR instructor and became a DRE, a drug recognition expert, in 2013. He's married to his childhood sweetheart, Ashley, who he went to kindergarten with. Brendan enjoys spending time with his wife, his 4-year-old daughter, Ellie Jean, and his 1-year-old son, Braden. He's also an avid hunter and fisherman. So, Brendan Pashone. So next I'd like to introduce one of our new employees, William Squires, who began his career in law enforcement with our agency on January 6th, 2014, and recently completed his field training program. So that's why he's here tonight. We wait until he completes his training, and then we introduce him to you. He was born in Alamosa. As a young child, he moved to Pueblo with his family. His father was a police officer with the city of Alamosa. And like I said, then they moved to Pueblo shortly after he was born. He graduated from Centennial High School in Pueblo in 2010. He continued his education through Colorado State University Pueblo, and then he went to the police academy with the Pueblo Community College and graduated in 2013. William explains that he can't see himself doing anything else in life and believes that he is very lucky to be doing what he loves every day, and that is a quote. William has been recently married, and I believe it's been 2 weeks.
Yeah, about 2.5.
So, and is looking forward to continuing his career serving the citizens of Alamosa. So, William Squires. And last but not least, Wendy Marcus. She was hired as the Office Supervisor Evidence Custodian on June 10th, 2014. And as you know, she replaced Christy Duarte, who is now the city clerk. Wendy's family is native to the Valley, although she was raised in Houston, Texas. She has 2 kids, one age 9, one age 11, who she indicates takes up the majority of her time. In 2010, she graduated from Adams State University with a bachelor's degree in chemistry. Prior to being hired by the police department, she managed the quality control lab at Alto Fuels for almost 3 years. She is a member of the American Chemical Society since 2010, and her hobbies include softball, camping, four-wheeling, hiking, and skiing. So, Wendy Marcus. And before I turn it over to any of them that want to speak, I just want to say that all of them are outstanding people. We are very lucky to have all of them working for the city. And even though some of them have been here in a short period of time, they all do an outstanding job and have already made an impact on our agency. So,
Thank you very much, Chief. Council, do you have any comments? Councilor Johnson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the good things about hiring a chief from within is we get to bump our guys up through the ranks, which is very nice for you guys to get promoted. I've seen you guys around. I enjoy being around you, and I think it's a great thing to get you guys bumped up. I can't miss you, William. You've grown about 2 feet since I saw you at Centennial High School. It's good seeing you, and welcome aboard. And also, Wendy, welcome aboard. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Anyone else? If there's no one else, I'd like to say, Chief, Ty?
Yeah, I just wanted to congratulate all of you and welcome to the city, to the new people, and congratulations on the promotions. Keep doing the great work that you're doing in the community. It means a lot. Trust me, when the citizen sees your presence, it really has a great image about our town. So keep up the great things that you're doing.
Thank you, Councilor Coleman. Anyone else? If not, then, Chief, I want to say that you gentlemen and Wendy, you bring honor not only to yourselves and your families, but also to the city of Alamosa. And congratulations, welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Chief.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. And also, if I can remind you, July 16th, please attend our promotion ceremony.
What time is that, Chief?
It is at, what time, Sam?
I believe it was 5:30.
Let me double check on the time. 5:30 at the Training Center on July 16th. So please attend if you can.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Heather?
Prior to moving off of this agenda item, we do have one more new employee we want to introduce, so I'll come up to the podium. It's a little challenging going after the chief because he has a lot more information to share. I'll let Cecilia share some of her life history. On the professional side, I do want to introduce Cecilia Cawley. She is our new Human Resources Manager. Her first day was this Monday. Prior to coming to the city of Alamosa, she was, let me get your official title, the Human Resource Generalist with SLV Mental Health Center. And in that position, she was able to work on the full range of HR functions. She was also able to receive a lot of specified training and to really become very educated in the HR field and in risk management, which this position is also responsible for. In December, she anticipates being certified as a professional human resources, and she will be receiving her Master of Business Administration here in a few months. So we might have to have a party for that. But she has a very in-depth background. We were very excited when we saw her resume come in for the process. She interviewed exceptionally well, and the couple days that she's been here, we've already taken off in areas. So I just want to welcome Cecilia, and she can share information on her son and husband and everything else if she wants to do that. But I wanted to welcome Cecilia.
Thank you, Heather.
I attended Alamosa High School, and I graduated not in 2010 like the other officer, but in 2000. So it has been quite a while. And I have moved around to Texas, Virginia, and Hawaii due to military changes, and then I returned back to the Valley like everybody else comes back. And I'm very excited to be a part of this team, be a part of the city, and you know the pride that comes with being a city employee. So,
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Cecilia. And with that, we'll move on to consent calendar A with a change of C1A, is correct? And that will go under regular business. Where shall we place that? Shall we place that CBB or?
We could place it under Public Works after we have the discussion on the West 8th Street, if that's okay with you, since it is a Public Works item.
Thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion on consent calendar A.
I motion we approve consent calendar A.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. To start voting, please.
Mayor, can I make a comment before we vote?
Okay.
I didn't want to pull it, but I just wanted to thank the Parks and Recreation people that here it's been about a month, we had some people come to the, talk about the cemetery, how they were taking the flowers off. These people went to work on that right away, and they put together a really good plan that we had some people over at the recreation meeting that attended, and they really got into it. And I want to thank them for a good response. You know, that only goes to tell that the people out there that when we have a problem, we go after it and we try to correct it. So I wanted to thank Hines and his crew for putting this together.
Thank you, Councilor Grego. And we do have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, please start voting. Christie?
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Council. And so then we'll move on to regular business with Public Works. And we've got Resolution Number 7, 2014, a resolution approving the final plat of the Murphy Theaters subdivision, Lot 1, Block 1, City of Alamosa, Alamosa, Colorado, Alamosa County, Colorado. Thank you, Pat, for being here.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, council. The property involved in this plat is the existing Murphy Theater. It's been in business for several years. It's had all of its services were provided years ago. There's no additional services necessary. The street has been built to the front of the property, and they are basically, this plat will simply just make official its existence as a single piece of property.
Thank you, Pat. Do we have any questions of Pat, Council? Councilor Grego?
Couple of comments. We've had a lot of really good growth out there. And
Yes.
it really looks, the entrance into our community, it really has brought it up. And, you know, it's through work, Fran and everybody else out there that have really contributed to the community.
Yeah,
It really looks
that's
great.
been nice development out there for sure.
Councilor?
Yes, Pat. So we've divided this parcel into two parcels. One is Lot 1, Block 1, and everything else is the remainder. Is that correct?
Well, they have cut out the easement for the retention pond, and that
Right.
is being dedicated to the public use, but the rest of it is the parent parcel, and it'll be divided in the future sometime.
Okay, very good.
All right. Are there any other questions?
If there's no further questions, Mayor, I'll make the motion that we pass Resolution Number 7, 2014, a resolution approving the final plat of the Murphy Theaters.
A second.
No.
No. I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this resolution? If not, start voting, Council. Christie?
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Council. Then we'll move on to preliminary order of construction of sidewalk in a special improvement district for 3 parcels on Clark Street. That's yours again, Pat.
All right. This is the first step in the creation of an SID to begin the improvements on Clark Street between Kraft and Walmart. This SID will address the 3 properties west of Kraft. We'll go from Kraft to the Maroon intersection. What contact I have had with the property owners to date, they are in favor of the SID. They want to make the improvements. They're excited about it. We've got a nice project planned out there, and like I said, this is the first step. We'll approach you with an ordinance at your next meeting, but this will allow us to basically get started on the construction, and will allow the property owners to pay for the improvements over time.
Thank you, Pat. Do we have any questions of Pat? Councilor Gillespie?
Yes, Pat, will the storm drains empty into a retention pond on this also, or?
No,
what's the
no,
plan?
the water, all of the drainage will come east to an inlet at Kraft, and it'll drop into our existing main, and then
Okay.
flow back west to Maroon and up to a lift station.
Okay, very good.
So
Thank you.
there'll be no exposed ponds.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Gillespie. Anyone else? If not, I've got a question for you. I would assume that there's a turning lane at the intersection there of Clark and Kraft.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There's a right-hand turn lane.
Well, that's going to be a welcome beautification project that we've been waiting for a long time.
Yeah.
Entrances to our school system, our high school, are really going to be enhanced with the improvement of that street.
Yeah, we hope so. It's good. It's a nice project.
Really, really nice. Thank you. Thank you, Pat. Are there any other questions or comments of Pat? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
If there's no,
Or is this just informational?
No, it's a motion to approve the preliminary plan.
Thank you.
if there's no other discussion, I move that we approve the preliminary order for the construction of sidewalk in the special improvement district for 3 parcels on Clark Street.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
I have a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion on this preliminary order? If not, start voting, council. Christie?
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, council. Next up, we will move to the continued discussion on West 8th Street possibilities for Alamosa School District. That is our city manager.
We wanted to let this stay in front of you. When we attended the work session with the school board, I think several of the council members were there. We had a very good discussion with the school board. We are going to be following up with a letter that summarizes just what those ideas were, what the intent of the meeting was. Prior to sending that letter, I wanted to see how this discussion went as well, if there needed to be additional information included. But as we left that work session, there wasn't necessarily any kind of strategy set out on if we were going to meet again, if they were going to discuss it at a meeting and let us know. And so I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts on, do you want staff to continue working to communicate with the school board? Do you want to have staff work on maybe setting up another meeting? Do you have any ideas of how you would like to have this handled?
Council?
Yeah, I think it'd be a great idea if we set up another meeting with the school board and get an update on where they stand with things.
Councilor Johnson?
Yeah, I agree with Councilor Vigil. We left that meeting kind of scratching our heads. I don't know if we came across strong to the school board or what, but I think we all understand that that is their property and that they're going to make the decisions. We're just trying to give them avenues and good advice that we believe would help them with their traffic flow out of their property. I do think we need to touch base with them again, but we need to keep in mind that is their project and that is their property, and they're going to have to make the final decision, and we are, being a good partner, want to support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Grego?
I had an opportunity to speak to one of the school board members, and the person told me that they had not discussed it yet, but it's still in a discussion mode, I guess. I did tell him that we're in the process of doing that street, and we're going to get that started, right, Pat, here pretty soon, so I don't know what direction they're going to go or what, but they're aware that we're going to proceed. You know, and I don't know what other ways they're going to, look at it. So,
Thank you, Councilor Grego. Councilor Coleman?
I too agree with everyone. I think we should meet because I felt like we really didn't accomplish much in that first meeting. I think we just started the conversation, which is good, but for the safety of the kids, I really believe we should make sure that we clarify our position as well as be considerate of their position, and like Councilman Johnson said about it being their properties, but more importantly, the safety of the kids, we should, so that they'll know, along with us doing expansion on 8th Street. I think it'll be a good thing.
Thank you, Councilor Coleman. Anyone else? I think it's important for us to continue to, at least communication of some sort, Heather. Do you have any ideas as to when we might meet or who we could visit with in the near future?
What I would look to do is, as I draft the letter, have it in that we would like to meet again. And if they have any interest in it being part of our meeting, another work session with them, but to let us know, and then I'd let a week or two go by and then contact Mr. Alejo probably to see if they have a preference on what kind of structure they'd want to that meeting, and move forward with that, if that's okay with you guys.
Councilor Johnson?
I'm just wondering how that fits with us time-wise, because we're starting the project, and they have a process also that isn't sometimes always the quickest, and I don't want to start giving them options when we're at the end of our project, and options that aren't feasible.
Well, I think as Pat tried to explain to them, we've designed the project in hopes that even if 2 years from now, should they find funding to be able to do some of these ideas, they would be able to accomplish that, and we wouldn't have to do additional cuts into the street or the sidewalk. So part of that conversation, we'll make sure that we are clear on what options they have now versus what options they have going forward.
Yeah. Thank you, because I think it's important, and I think they did understand that the mobilization of the crews is probably an expense that they'll incur on their own, and something that, anyway, thank you, and probably a good idea in your letter to see if they're even receptive to a meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Thank you, Heather. And so we will just allow staff to write the letter and see what negotiations we can come up with. Councilor Grego?
I've had an opportunity to speak to a lot of people up in that area, and I didn't really know the procedures on their work session, or else I would have invited all those people. And I don't know if they would have appreciated that, because there is a big concern out there, and right now it's quiet down because there's no school. Once that starts again, we're going to have some problems, and just as Mr. Coleman says, this is the safety of the kids. We don't, this shouldn't be any kind of a tug of war. It's the safety of our children, and that's what we're trying to address. And hopefully that, they can see that so we can get together and come up with something, so.
Thank you, Councilor Grego. It is of paramount importance for us to, and I know council is very sensitive to safety issues. We can only hope that we can get some communication going and maybe some satisfaction on both ends in trying to move this project forward. Thank you, Council. With that, we'll move on to C1A, Award of Bid 2014 Street Improvement Projects, which we've moved on to regular business. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you. This is our annual street improvement project. This year's project includes an expansion and reconstruction of West 8th Street from Jefferson Avenue to Pikes Peak Avenue, the reconstruction of Clark from Craft to Maroon, and a plant mix seal coat overlay on Franklin from Stadium to Murphy, and 8th Street from State to Ross. The total budget allocation for this project is $636,000. We're asking for the approval of this phase of the contract to ACI in the amount of $579,505. We have had some cost overruns in the bidding process and throughout the whole design process this year. We will be approaching you at your next meeting for a budget amendment to cover these costs. We've been, we can identify some of the causes. We've had some scope creep based on multiple redesigns relative to West 8th Street, trying to work to find a middle ground with property owners. We're starting to see some new Americans with Disabilities Act requirements kick in, so that's starting to cost us a little bit more for concrete. We are going to see those costs just continue to go up over the next several years. And we've had, like I said, we've had multiple redesigns on 8th Street. It's caused us to increase the size of the pipe on the south side of the street because we took the swales and the piping out of the north side. We had to adjust that pipe on the south to increase our storage capabilities. And so we are asking for 579,505 for a contract approval with ACI.
Thank you, Pat. Questions, council?
I had a
Councilor
question,
Grego?
Pat, Mayor. Can you tell us the difference in the price on that street? You said there was some overruns on West 8th.
Yes, sir.
What's the difference as far as if we would have gone to Monroe?
Right now, I have the project stopping at Pikes Peak Avenue.
Right.
If we extend it to Monroe, it's going to be an additional $170,000.
And the reason I bring this point up is if we do this next year, and you just said it yourself, costs are going up. Wouldn't it be better to do it this year if we could find the money somewhere and get that completed? Because how much more will it cost us next year to do that other section? You know?
Well, our costs typically go up, I'm going to guess, I'm going to estimate about 5% a year. That seems to be a fairly standard increase, and that's what we see over time. So, you know, we can, if we can find the money to do it this year, certainly we can extend it to Monroe. I have a little bit of concern about that simply because we're so late in the year.
Right.
I want to finish that job before the school starts.
Sure.
And I think that'll save a lot of headaches. But we can, you know, if you guys would like us to, we can certainly try.
Yeah.
Essentially, anticipating that this question may come up, we did meet with Amanda as well, that if it is something that council felt we needed to do the additional 175 this year, that we could look at the fund balance to do that. We still have the concern that Pat has in regards to getting it done before school, but that's something you can take into consideration of how important you think that is.
So Pat says that maybe this will increase 5% only this, so what are we looking at?
That would be my guess. I obviously can't be held to that, but
Yeah.
that seems to be a safe assessment.
Thank you, Councilor Grego. Councilor Johnson?
Pat, we are going to extend that project all the way to 160, correct?
Eventually, yes.
What's the time frame on that thing? Do we have something set in stone or?
Well,
just-
nothing's set in stone. Don was planning on completing it in 2 years, but that was based on going to Monroe this year.
Okay.
So I would see it as probably a 3-year project
Okay,
now.
and that's what I had anticipated with the change here. Is there possibilities of, I understand the need to, when school starts, to be out of that area. Is there a way we can set something up that if it can be completed to Monroe, we would consider that the additional, and if not, then, or that's probably not a good idea?
Well, we can always look at it. I have a coordination meeting with all of the contractors involved next week, and I can talk to them and see what they think.
Okay, and I do think getting out of there before school starts is really important, so it was just a question.
Yeah,
And-
we could investigate that.
And there was an additional part that I forgot to mention as we were discussing this. While we can do this with the fund balance, I want to remind council that part of the discussions we've had is as we look at the CIP more in depth this year and have more of a process, part of what we were going to combine with that discussion is how far down do you want to spend the fund balance? And so at that point, you would be having a discussion of dipping into that potentially in the full range of all the types of projects that are out there. Or you can choose to do the 175 from this year. I ran the numbers just quickly. A 5% is about 8,750.
Thank you, Heather. Council, are there any other questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion on C1A, award of bid 2014 street improvement projects.
Mayor, I had another comment. Years back, and I think Pat was still here, We experimented with some chip and seal. We did a bunch of roads one year, and I don't know if it's,
We haven't done any chip seal since I've been here.
well, then it was prior to you, to you coming here. And I remember that Don had found a method how to extend the life of some of these streets, and we did a bunch of them. And I was wondering if in some of those files that Don left behind, if we could probably look into them and do a little bit, do a bunch of that chip and seal.
Well, we can certainly look at chip seal. It's a wonderful tool. When used on the correct streets, it'll add 10 to 15 years of life to your street.
And I've noticed that on a lot of streets where we've done the cutting, they've come back and they've patched it, but it's sunk, So you go through some of these streets and you've got it's like a puzzle, it's some of the parts are up and down and stuff. So I think if we would be able to come back and do a little chip and seal, we could, and it was, back then, we got a good bang for our money. And I was trying to dig through some of my old stuff to see.
All of the maintenance techniques these days, chip seal, they've really refined it. They've gotten the broken windshields down. They've really increased their ability to do it effectively. The slurry seal that we did last year is a real effective tool. They also have something called a macro surface that is the slurry industry's answer to a plant mix seal coat that could be very effective here. I'd actually like to try a couple, 3 blocks of that next year. There's certainly a lot of things we can try now that we're shifting more to a maintenance position instead of a rebuild position.
And as we look at the CIP, and we've been earmarking some of the maintenance chunks of money for those types of things, I know Pat's been doing research on what gets us the best bang for the dollar, but yet is going to last and get us the quality that we want to. So if you look at the CIP in the street section, there's for 2015 a dollar amount that's indicated, and it says, I believe, slurry seal or seal coat. It's for seal coat, but it doesn't necessarily have to be just that. It could be some of these other options that might work better type of situation as well.
Right.
And we're constantly getting calls on our streets, that the streets are banned at. But it only goes to prove that when you start spending over $600,000 a year towards getting that, I think some of the calls have quieted down, but we still have a bunch of bad streets out there.
We do.
And slowly but surely, we're catching up on them. And, there was years back where we never spend this kind of money. And then finally council come together and say, hey, we're going to start spending at least over $600,000 every year to try to catch up on some of this stuff.
Right. I think these last couple of years we've been spending the money pretty effectively with a healthy mix of maintenance and rebuild. I think it's a good way to tackle the program or tackle the problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grego. Yeah, that slurry seal or the seal coat on, I believe it's Clark.
We did some on Clark. Yeah.
That has held up very well.
It's held up real well.
It held up real well, and there aren't really, from what I can see, there aren't any major cracks in that like there used to be. So
Well, the slurry seal itself isn't designed to be a structural layer. It's not meant to bridge a gap or a crack. And, I would expect any major cracks. What we did is we went through and we crack sealed that street before we did it. But in a few years, I would expect to see those cracks come back up through the slurry, but it's not designed to prevent that. We'll crack seal those when they do come up. What it is it's a new wear surface. It protects the asphalt from UV, protects it from weathering, and the more UV it takes, the more of the volatiles come out of the asphalt and it gets brittle. And then when we go through our freeze thaw cycles, instead of flexing, it just breaks. And that's what the slurry is designed to prevent.
Well, I travel that street every time I go to Walmart, and so the drivability of that street is actually fairly pleasant. So, yeah, it's something I think Councilor Grego has a good point. We could probably look at that as an alternative over time. Thank you.
But I think this is a good discussion because I think we've received some comments of the areas we've put this on that they're already starting to see cracks. And so I think the explanation of what it was intended to do and not do is probably good.
We fully expected the cracks to come through.
Thank you. Councilor Johnson?
With the information we received, I will move that we award the bid of the 14th Street Improvement Project from Jefferson Avenue to Pikes Peak Avenue to Asphalt Contractors Incorporated in the amount of $579,505.
Thank you. I've got a motion.
I'll second that.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on C1A? If not, start voting, please. Christie?
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, council. And so next we'll move on to city manager legal. First reading ordinance number 7, 2014, an ordinance approving 2 intergovernmental agreements with the Colorado Department of Public Safety, Colorado State Patrol, to provide radio dispatch service to the Alamosa Police Department and the Alamosa Fire Department based on the dispatch fee schedules set by the Colorado Legislature. And first reading on ordinance number 8, 2014, an ordinance approving intergovernmental agreement with the Alamosa School District for the school resource officer for school year 2014-2015. Heather? Oh, it's Chief, I'm sorry.
I believe Chief Oaks is going to lead this one.
That's
Okay.
The first one for the dispatch services, an intergovernmental agreement between the city of Alamosa and the state of Colorado. Colorado State Patrol is needed for the dispatch services. We currently have an agreement with them which doesn't expire until December 31st of this year. It was brought in front of council in 2009. What the state is trying to do is they're attempting to get all of their IGAs in line with their fiscal years, and that's why they brought this forward to us now instead of towards the end of the year. If this is passed and we can sign the IGA, it will go into effect as soon as it's signed. So this the IGA that we're proposing under this ordinance will stay in effect until June 30th of 2019. So, but the dispatch services obviously are needed for calls for service. 911 runs through the State Patrol Communications Center, and that's how both of these services, I can speak to the fire and the police on this. This is how we are dispatched to all of our calls. So,
Thank you, Chief. Councilor Stefano? Councilor Grego?
Have the costs gone up on this, Chief, or not?
actually, the costs have gone down. The previous chief, Craig Dodd, was successful in pointing out to them that the cost factors, their ratios were off.
No, great.
And we did get a refund back from them this year.
Good.
And this, under this year's or the next fiscal year's numbers, we are even down from where Craig Dodd took it.
Great,
I
that's
believe
good.
it was $5,000, $10,000 less, give or take.
That is
So it
great.
has gone down. They've looked at their ratios. It's based on a percentage of calls across the entire state, and those numbers have gone down.
Good. That's good to hear.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone else? Councilor Grego?
Well, if there's no further questions, I'll make the motion that we pass ordinance number 7, 2014 on first reading and set it for a public hearing on July the 16th at 7 o'clock or soon thereafter.
I second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on ordinance number 7, 2014? If not, start voting, please. Christie?
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, council. Next up is first reading on ordinance number 8, 2014. Thank you, Chief.
So this one pertains to the school resource officer that we provide with the partnership that we have with the school district. This one specifically for fiscal year 24, the school year 2014-2015, which begins in August and runs through May. Each year we provide a full-time officer to the school district. They are based out of the high school. They do work, or this officer does work in the middle school. And this year I also added, because of the call load we had last year, that he would do some work in the elementary school. We're seeing increasing issues with 4th and 5th graders, so I thought it would be good that we would reach out to the elementary school and have him doing some education classes and things like that through the elementary school as well. His primary assignment would be at the high school, though. Through this agreement, the district agrees to pay the city 50% of the officer's salary, which includes his benefits, and this is not to exceed $25,000 per school year. The job of the officer would be there to deal with any legal issues that come up. He's also there for educational programs for the students, the staff, and the parents. So it's an important program. And in the past years, I know some of the previous chiefs have given you numbers as far as decrease in number of calls and things like that. And I think they've stayed consistently low since we've started this program.
Thank you, Chief. Counsel? Counselor Behill?
Yeah, Chief, what kind of educational pieces does he give to the students and?
Drug use, bullying, drinking, sexting, social networks, things like that. Everything that the kids could get in trouble for or could be exposed to any type of danger. We do educational crimes as well.
Counselor Coleman?
Yes, Chief, I would like to commend you for this position. I like it because so often, a lot of times when kids experience law enforcement, sometimes it's mostly the negative side of things. And I think it's very good that we're going to have a presence in the school, not only just informing and educating the students, but also letting the students have a chance to associate with an officer. And I believe we're going to probably end up with a lot more young people involved in the community as far as wanting to do more in law enforcement in the future. So keep up that good work.
Thank you. And that's one of the goals of the program by having him exposed or our officer exposed to the younger kids in elementary school is to take that stigma away that the police aren't their friend. They can actually see that person in another capacity and build those relationships and bridge those gaps.
Thank you, Counselor Coleman. Counselor Johnson?
Yeah, just another, I agree with Ty, and this is a really good program. I'm really glad we're supporting it. I'm glad it has your support. This program has evolved immensely since its inception, and I commend council on supporting this program, and I think it's a real good thing for our community.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Counselor Stefano?
It is a very important program, I agree. Is Officer Luco still the one doing this?
He is our school resource officer, and when and if this is approved, he will continue to do that program.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Stefano. Are there any other questions or comments of the chief? If not, I'll entertain a motion on ordinance number 8.
Check, check. I think we're good.
Testing. Thank you, James. Appreciate it.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you all.
I'll make a motion, we approve ordinance number 8, 2014, an ordinance approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Alamosa School District to provide a school resource officer from the Alamosa Police Department to the Alamosa School District.
Thank you. I've got a motion and a second. There's no way for us to vote, but I guess we can just raise our hands.
We need a
Set it for a public hearing on July 16th at 7 o'clock or as soon thereafter as applicable.
Thank you. Second?
A second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on ordinance number 8, 2014? Seeing none, I guess we can all vote by, call the roll, please, Christie.
Start with Councilor Johnson on the end.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Feels like old times here. Now we'll move on to committee reports. Does anyone have a committee report? Councilor Johnson?
Real quick one, tree board, we met today. A couple things we covered. I do want to thank Heinz and his crew for their work around, if you walk around our new City Hall complex. I think my mic's working, so I'll just scoot closer.
I think they're all.
Heinz, there was some, we talked about some issues with some trees underneath the drip rail and the roof line that weren't picked up during the build, and Heinz's crew moved those things out of the way, so if you take a walk around, there's been some new digging and moving of those trees, and very appreciative of that, Heinz. You solved that problem, and I think we'll get a better life out of the trees. We also are working on amending, the tree board has a recommendation list for trees to plant in our city, things that have done well in the past. They're doing some revising of that because, for example, the ash, we're taking it off the list until they get a handle on the emerald ash beetle situation. So we're going to strike that. Probably have a finalized list at the end of, after the next meeting, and I'll shoot you guys out a copy of that. It's probably something that isn't that interesting, but if people are looking for a specific tree, they can recommend what will work for them. And I think that was it.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Stefano?
I want to thank Public Works too for that beautification project over by Monterey Cafe on the one-way coming east. Looks great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Stefano. Councilor Grego?
I had a couple of, Mayor, first an update on the airport terminal. We did sign the contract with DOLA this past Friday for the $1 million that they gave us. We're going to have a meeting on Monday, the 7th, with Alcon to start that project, and it should be rolling pretty good, the new terminal. Another one is recreation. We had a couple of meetings with a Recreation Advisory Board. One of them, like I said, mentioned earlier, the cemetery rules and revisions. We talked about that. They also talked about having another meeting with the capital improvements, and I wasn't able to attend that, and I think Heinz will give us an update on that. And last, yesterday we had a meeting over at the end of the Rio Grande on the water rules, and Eric will give us a little update on that under staff announcements.
Thank you, Councilor Grego.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on then to staff announcements. Heather? Thank you, Pat. Anyone else?
In addition to that, we are doing a step in the next utility payment as a reminder of the voluntary restriction. Really do need people to continue doing this on a voluntary basis, so it does help us. And I also just want council to be aware, the public to be aware that whenever these staff have to pull over, we are trying to work very aggressively to get this significant time. We have staff who are working at night and doing culture students, so we need to keep them out during the day. And something like that, we are in constant communication with the contractor to try to get the filters and the other types of information products that we need in the time. It's a little challenging at times, but we are doing, for what's under our control, trying to be as aggressive as possible.
Thank you, Heather. Councilor Grego?
I just had a comment. I wanted to thank Pat. By rights, he should be home in bed after the surgery that he's gone through. And I bet you only took 2 or 3 days off. It seems like, after going through a tough surgery like that and your dedication to the city, boy, that's incredible. But you're even standing there.
It's a little better every day.
Great. Good.
Thank you, Councilor Grego. Councilor Vihil?
Yeah, I had a question for Pat and Heather. Can you give an update on the voluntary water restrictions? How's that, the results of that, anything?
Like Heather said, we're putting out a utility flyer, a flyer in the utility bills this month. We're seeing, it's kind of hard to quantify exactly because, it's different curves every day, but it looks as though we've seen consistently about 100 or 150,000 gallons a day since savings, since we've asked for voluntary restrictions. And we appreciate all of that.
Thank you, Councilor Vihil. Councilor Gillespie?
Yes, I've got a question, I guess, for Jim or Heather. I know Jim's put in a lot of time on the new code, Encode. How's that working? Have we had a chance to work with that yet, or is it still?
What we can do here in a minute, Amanda was going to give an update on
Oh,
the
okay.
audit, but I can have her give an update on the Encode as well.
Okay,
If that
thank you.
would work. Hines, if you want to do some of the update that we discussed, here's the microphone. Okay.
Got a couple items to go over. As you probably already know, that on June 24th, last Tuesday, we had a brawl at the softball fields at Lee Field. And basically, the result of that was that we had 3 members of one of the Leisure League teams assault the umpire, which resulted in him being taken to the ER by the ambulance. What we've done with those three individuals have been banned for life. They are no longer welcome at the Alamosa Rec Center or any of their programs. Also, there was a 4th member that verbally threatened the umpire, and he's been banned from the rest of the season from softball, and also the team has been taken off the roster for the rest of the season. The individuals have been cited in the county court for disorderly conduct and 3rd-degree assault. Right now, Dave's doing really good, the umpire, and he will have some medical issues in the future, and we'll, as a city, help deal with those as they come along.
Thank you, Hines.
Tennis court resurfacing. If you recall, in 2013, the city solicited bids for the Carroll Park tennis courts, selected a contractor based on the bids received, and for whatever reason, the winning contractor did not fulfill his part of the bargain. So we've been working with United States Tennis Association, USTA, and as a bid advisor, and also keeping them in the loop and making sure that our bid for this year makes us eligible for up to a 20% grant from them to help cover the costs of the resurfacing. The bids were let out last Tuesday, and the closing will be next Tuesday, July the 8th. And we expect to bring the winning bid, hopefully, to council on July 16th.
We wanted to make sure council's aware too that we have been receiving communication from users of the tennis courts, and I think there is disappointment that with it not being completed until September, that they are losing some more weather of playtime. But we are going to sit down, we're going to meet with them. We want to make sure they understand why we're in the situation we are in, and then just also get a better understanding of what needs they have. So if you get any questions or calls, there has been some communication behind the scenes on that.
We've dealt very closely with the USTA. In fact, our last communications before the bid went out was earlier this month. So we're just trying to cross our I's, dot our I's and cross our T's, basically, to make sure that we'll have a good bids. And also, we emailed 7 prospective vendors, and 3 of those have contacted us, and they're very interested in bidding. So hopefully, those 3 will present us some bids. And also, to weed out any of the non-committed contractors, we're doing a 5% performance bond or a bid bond, so with the bid itself. So hopefully that will only get the serious players to submit bids.
Thank you, Heinz.
Okay.
Councilor Vihil?
Yeah, as many of you know, I'm also a softball umpire down there for the rec league, and I want to applaud Heinz, Jess, and Andy for the way they handled that brawl. It's unfortunate, and we're there to have fun, that type of stuff. And I think Heinz and Jess and Andy, they run a top-notch softball league where we have tons of teams coming from all over, Monty, Del Norte, La Jera, and they run a very good league. So keep up the good work, Heinz.
Of all the leagues, the Leisure was not the one I would expect something like that to happen. Or actually, I don't expect it to happen in any of them, but less likely in the Leisure. I mean, it's supposed to be a fun league, and that's gotten way too serious for that. So.
Thank you, Councilor Vihil. Councilor Johnson?
I have a comment on both issues, the tennis
Sure.
courts and the softball fight. Along with Councilor Vihil, I'm very disappointed in how the conduct of a few people, and I applaud you and your staff for taking care of that, and the police department quick reaction to that. It's just something that's out of your control, everyone's control, and the swift and harsh punishment is all we can depend on to curb that kind of action, and you did a really good job in doing that. And it's just troubling that it was a leisure league, and there's just so many things that are wrong with that bother me, but you guys took care of it correctly, and I applaud you for that. As far as the tennis court, there is some public that are a little not too happy with it. Just for public information, the contract or construction season does overlap with the tennis playing season. It would be nice if we could get this stuff done during the winter, but we can't. So for them to have nice courts, we have to infringe on their time just a little bit. And it's really unfortunate that we had a contractor lined up and he withdrew or basically didn't show. And that's the cause of this, and I just ask them to be patient with us. Now the process is taking longer because of that, and because we need to protect ourselves, and that's just, it's an unfortunate thing, but I'm just asking the public to be patient with us through this process, and we'll get it, and it'll be a very nice facility for them in the future. Thank you, Heinz.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Grego?
I want to thank you and I guess Heather for putting together this Community Recreation Fund Capital Improvements Project. I noticed that there's a backlog of projects that the city is looking at maybe one day complete. And for this, I think it's going to tie up a lot of monies with GOCO. Are we going to approach GOCO for a lot of these project signs?
Some of the large ones, yes, certainly. I mean, that's probably the only way to fund those projects is sharing the cost with another entity.
And part of why we wanted to hand this out tonight, I think it was based on some discussion we had with you, council member, in regards to helping, just to have a reminder for council. This is a copy from your CIP that was approved in this current year budget. Obviously, every year as we review the CIP, you guys may have changes, but as of right now, these are the scheduled projects for the next 5 years. And then you can see, as council members referenced, that there is a long list. with the recent news that the Polston property has been sold, I know there's been discussions with the city on potentially using us as a partner for GOCO grants, and I think comments were also made on potentially as the match using the Conservation Trust Fund. So if you flip to the backside, those are how those funds are currently being used. So if you are asked questions or approached as far as what the city's plans have been for GOCO grants and conservation funds, that's normally where staff would look, is in the CIP on these two sheets. And you will notice in the Parks and Recreation side, there's significant projects, and those are projects that we've been hearing a lot from the public. You've got the ASU partnership, you've got the dog park. We've had a lot of, or Heinz's group's been having a lot of discussion with the hockey group. So there's a lot of groups out there that have been communicating some needs, and those projects right now are unfunded. So it was important to share this and make sure you guys are aware of it as part of the CIP.
Thank you, Heather. Yeah, I did want to say that our parks are in really great shape, and the 4th of July is coming. I'm sure they're going to be very well utilized. And so I applaud Parks and Rec for, taking the initiative to make sure that our parks are in really good shape with the holiday coming up. Really appreciate that as well. All right.
I believe Heinz had a little bit more, and this next part is what amazes me. I mean, it's clear that this time of the year is a busy season for Parks and Recreation, and the list he's getting ready to go over of the activities that are occurring, it's very impressive.
Yeah, and then some of these are not ours, but just to let you know all the things that's going on that you have the opportunity to participate in and enjoy. The biggest one, of course, is the Independence Day on July 4th on Friday. Just kind of review that, the Kiwanis Pancake Breakfast is from 7 to 10, and that's their 40th, so that's a milestone for them. Parade follows at 10 o'clock, and then the theme is the Great Sand Dunes, some beach somewhere. And then at 6 o'clock, between the city and the county, we're offering the free watermelon feed until all the watermelons are gone. And then at 6:30, we've got a live performance band, Home Slice, coming in from 6:30 to 9:30. 9:30, obviously the fireworks around that time will be starting. And also this year we've worked with KSKP, and we'll be simulcasting the music with the fireworks display. So if you're in the stands or you're out on Airport Road, you'll be hearing the same music no matter where you're at. Also during this upcoming weekend, Friday through Sunday, the Rio Grande Scenic Railroad is going to have their Americana Music Festival up there at Fur. So they've got 20 bands, they've got multiple trips going up there, so that's another good time to spend with family and friends. On July 11th through 12th at Cole Park, Relay for Life. It's an all-night affair for that one. And also on the 12th, we've got the air show at the airport. That's free for everybody. There's also going to be a pancake breakfast from 7 to 10, and the air show is from 10 to noon. That's sponsored by the SLV Pilots Association. And there's more going down, through the month, but if you want to see more of it, just go to the alamosarec.org and hit the events calendar, and you'll see what's posted for the rest of the month. Six o'clock, yes, that's sponsored by the Alamos Live Music Association, ALMA. We support them, both financially and also, with our use of our stage. And right now, they're skipping this Sunday because of the 4th of July, and we've brought in the Home Slice Band. So their next band is July 13th, and they have a couple of them. And it's Sweet Radish and Reverend and the Blues Pushers. They're both local bands from the Valley. Wendy Vu is a headliner. We had them in Summerfest one year, so they're a major band with a draw.
It's a wonderful opportunity for families to get together on Sunday and enjoy the park and enjoy music, and hopefully the rain will stay away. We appreciate that.
Well, it is monsoon season now, I guess, supposedly, so. All righty, thank you.
Okay, yeah, Amanda has a bit of an update.
So we have completed the first phase of the Encode update, which is just general financials. We moved from version 8 of Encode to version 10. During that time period, we had a consultant that was here with us and trained finance staff for 2 weeks because the software is very different. 8 and 10 look totally different. It's a whole new package. After the consultant left, we ended up trying to change servers over from old server to new server. In the process of IT doing that, it became apparent that we had to move from version 8 to version 9 in order to move that over. We hadn't originally anticipated having to move from 8 to 9. The consultant wasn't in-house during that time period. So when that moved over, there was a couple of things that broke in between the bridge that we had that still runs, because we still have some of our modules that are in version 8 because we've not updated those yet. So some of those that were bridged over, those items broke. We were able to get them to communicate from 9 back into 10. But in that process, we lost a couple of packets and a couple of things that have thrown our trial balances out. So we've been working on getting all of that back in order. So our audit has been pushed back a little bit. So we will be sending in a notice to our state auditors to request an extension. Normally, our audit is due to the state by July 30th. We still could work to try and get it to that point with our auditors. We should be able to give them a good trial balance by the first part of next week for them to start doing the meatier part of our audit. But we're going to send in the extension. I'll have the mayor sign that form for me tonight, just so we're not in a bind with our state auditors. It gives us an additional 60 days. I don't feel like we're going to need the full 60 days in order to complete that audit. But with everything with the conversion and a couple of the snags that we've hit, we're going to go ahead and do that extension to keep us still in compliance with the state. Version 10 is a lot different, so we're all on a huge learning curve, but we are doing all of our accounts payable. Payroll is running. We will go live with our new time clock system on midnight this coming Sunday, which is a new payroll cycle. So everything's starting to move in a good direction. It's just been a little bumpy getting there.
I have actually a few items, and then I'll turn it over to Eric. Amanda and I guess at this point it was 3 weeks ago, attended a week-long conference on economic development in Denver. It was a very good session. We'll have a little bit more of a better presentation of the takeaways that we had once we catch our breath a little bit. But one of the major takeaways that we had that I came back and talked to Jim about is the importance of having a website. Historically, when site selectors were looking at locating different employers and as well companies into communities, they'd contact your economic developer, they'd ask you your demographics, they'd ask you what locations you have, those types of things. This isn't surprising to most people, but with the advent of the internet, a lot of those steps are being done before we even know that they're looking at us. So the importance of having a professional website that can be navigated and that has the right economic development information on it is just extremely important. They spent a significant amount of time of what should be on there and how to make the most of that. We had the work session, I believe, maybe 2 months ago on some of the things we're working on with our website. One of the major items that prompted that work is the navigation of the current website and the content on there. So when I came back, Jim had already been working very heavy on the website to begin with, but we want to roll out the launch of that website probably next Friday, potentially. There's still discussions we plan to have with you as council in regards to the logo, tagline, color scheme, different things like that that are easy to implement even on the new website. So I don't want you to feel as if we are overstepping and not taking into account some of the ideas and comments that were made at that work session. We still plan to get some more information from our employee team, some more ideas, bring that back to you guys for additional discussion. But as far as the structure of the website, the links, the navigation, the information that's on there, we are moving quickly to get that out in order to take advantage of it. Because sometimes we have no idea if someone's looking at our community, and if we don't have that information, they will pass us by. And so it's critical. Jim, before I move on to the next topic, did you have anything to say or any questions on this, on the website? The other item I just wanted to mention, I received a phone call late today from the city manager with the city of Cortez. Apparently, they are also having some problems with their local airport. Some of it is stemming from the new FAA regulations and how that impacts the hours that the people can fly and all of that. They also use Great Lakes, as we do. And so they are setting up a phone conference probably for next week with the FAA to just try to see if they can get any changes, anything like that. I plan to contact the county tomorrow to make them aware of it. And their hopes is that, as I explained to him, since the county operates the airport, that the county would be willing to call in on that. But then also, if we could have myself and I would hope the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem sit in on that phone conference as well, just to talk about how important to a rural community that a airport really is, and what some of their regulations impact is on communities like us. So I want to make the council aware of that there are other communities experiencing the same challenges, and maybe by working together, we might be able to get some headway on some of this. So for Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem, I'll pass that information once they send it to me on the date, time, and the phone number. I'll pass that on to you. When,
I know they're working because of the regulations that the FAA set back then. I know they're trying to work around that, but so I just can't overemphasize the fact that you said let's work with them, communicate with them, and see what we work at.
and to make sure it was clear, because this may not have been, the phone conference isn't to put pressure on the airline. It's to talk to FAA so they understand that by setting the seat limit number, the impact that it's having for everything else. And so I would assume the airline would be in favor of some of these discussions, that if the FAA would make some of these changes. So it is not anything in an attempt to put pressure on the airline itself. And with that, that's the updates I have, and I think Eric was going to provide a water update.
Yes, just briefly, as Councilor Griego mentioned, he and I were at the most recent Citizens Advisory meeting of the state engineer in the state engineer's process of developing the new well regulations. And those continue to be developed. This is a process that's been going on for over 2 years now. The state engineer is getting a refined version of the model, which predicts what depletions from wells are to various surface streams. They're looking to have, they think, final revisions on that toward the end of this month, and that will then enable them to redo the program schedules for what the various response areas that calculate depletions of wells within certain areas of the valley might be. All of that to say that we don't have rules yet, but they are gradually getting to the point where they're refined enough that I think we're looking at them. The state engineer says ASAP. Whether that means the end of the year or the end of the summer or the beginning of next year, sometime fairly soon. One of the sticking points that have been being addressed lately is the concept of making rules for ensuring that the aquifers are sustainable. So the rules will require both that if you pump your well, you have to replace any depletions that your well makes to surface streams, and also that when you are pumping wells, you have to do so in a manner that maintains the sustainability of the aquifer. How to translate that into a rule has been very difficult, and that's one of the reasons that this process is taking so long. So the most recent revision of the rules sets up a mechanism for measuring the sustainability, particularly of the confined aquifer, which is where we get our water, by tying the pumping in any response area to limits that reflect what the pumping was in 1978 to 2000, which is the time frame that's referenced as being by statute defined as sustainable. So that pumping amount or those pressures that existed from 1978 to 2000 are defined by statute as being sustainable. The rule says that is a metric for sustainability. You can't have more pumping than you did. Now, what will happen 10 to 20 years in the future is that the model will backward calculate what the artesian pressures were at that time. We don't have data. There isn't data that shows, good data that shows what the pressures were, what the water levels were from 1978 to 2000. So as current data becomes available and the model is refined, it'll back predict what those water pressures were and water levels were, and you'll have to meet those water levels, not just pumping, but those water levels. So that's kind of the concept. It does tie in with, it ties in well with what the city has been considering as a possible approach to an augmentation plan. We're currently thinking about ways to do that and trying to be proactive in getting set for meeting the regulation requirements with a potential augmentation plan, or with potentially contracting with subdistrict number 4 as it gets formed, and still debating both of those aspects. But the kind of regulations that it looks like are centering toward completion here are predictable and what we've been looking at in terms of trying to come up with ways to deal with that. So the process is ongoing. Who knows exactly how long it's going to be, and we will continue to move forward to try to be in a position to meet the requirements of the regulations.
Thank you, Eric. Are there any other staff announcements? No?
Before we move on, Mayor, a couple comments. You talked about Sub-District 4, which I think almost would be part of it.
We wouldn't be part of it because Alamosa, being a governmental entity, doesn't pay taxes, and the sub-districts are essentially based on tax paying. So the sub-districts that we've seen formed so far, which is just Sub-District 1, exclude governmental entities from being members. So that's when I say we would contract with Sub-District 4, we wouldn't be a member, but that would be the logical sub-district with which we would have a contract if we were to work with a sub-district to meet the requirements.
Thank you, Councilor Grego. Are there any other staff announcements? No? If not, we'll move on as the local licensing authority and consider consent calendar B. The consent calendar allows multiple actions with one motion. Consent calendar B contains routine items that are under council's jurisdiction as the local licensing authority. Council may remove a consent calendar item for separate consideration under consent calendar B. We have B1, approved special events permit application for Alamosa County Chamber of Commerce barbecue events at Cole Park on August the 1st and 2nd, 2014. Do I have any discussion on consent calendar B, or I'll entertain a motion? Councilor Johnson? Councilor Vihil?
Fine. If there's no further discussion, I move that we approve special events permit application for Alamosa County Chamber of Commerce barbecue events at Cole Park on August 1st and 2nd, 2014.
Second?
I've got a motion and a second. Christie, would you take the roll, please? You can yell out his name.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Christie. Now we'll move on to council comment. Who's got the first comment? Councilor Vihil?
Yes, I'd like to thank Hines and his staff again for the dog park meeting they had a few days ago. Again, it's running very smooth, and I'm glad that we're getting a lot of public input, and it looks like it's going to be a great project. And secondly, I'd like to thank Judy Egbert and Christie and Heather, and to Councilors Grego, Gillespie, and Johnson, and Mayor Lucero for kind of guiding me and showing me the ropes at the CML conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vihil. Who's next? Councilor Grego?
I don't know if everybody got this letter from the governor in your mailbox. I don't know if it's just something. Anyway, this is a letter from the governor recognizing the efforts of the Veterans Coalition of the San Luis Valley. What this is, it's a pilot project that partners with the Veterans Administration, local health care providers, public policy makers, agencies, businesses, nonprofit organizations, and individual citizens to make testing, treatment, and other health services available nearby in a manner which is cost effective. This is a veterans first approach, means the San Luis Valley veterans will no longer have to travel hundreds of miles to receive quality health care. And they're having a meeting on July the 15th from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock over at the San Luis Valley Education Conference Center, located at 921 Main Street at the Festival Alamosa Inn. We're going to have a meeting there, and I'd like to invite all the council people that can attend to show up. CML did have a session on veterans that was pretty well attended, and it was quite informative, where veterans are coming back now and they're trying to make acceptance into the community and jobs and other efforts and stuff. But I'd like to invite everybody, also the governor wants everybody to be there July 15th from 10 o'clock to 12 p.m. And that's why I said over at the old Alamo Center, that conference center that the hospital has. I believe that's the one that we're talking about.
Thank you, Councilor Grego. Anyone else? Councilor Johnson?
Yeah, I have a couple, and I'll try to be brief on most of them. CML, I've checked on their website. I know all of you were in this position. They only offered classes one session, and there was always, the ones I wanted to go to, there was always two as an option. And they did put all their information on the classes online with all their notes and handouts for the classes. So I've gone through and looked at some of that information on the classes I didn't get to attend. So that's available if you go to their website. Also, I was at the dog park meeting forum, and thank Hines and his staff for putting together a very good package and good information for the public. Also had a meeting Friday morning with the hospital group. I'd like to thank them. Mrs. Martin and the upper administration met with, most of staff was there, myself and Michael, Councilor Stefano was there. Very interesting things going on with the hospital. The quality of, what they talked about most was the quality of health care has improved, the quality of medicine has improved. A good example is just childbirth. 10 years ago, it would be a 3-day stay in the hospital, and now the turnaround is 1 day. They try to make it where they're in and out. So the problem for the hospital becomes, it's cutting back on their financials, so they've changed their business model. They're bringing in more specialists to deal with things that they didn't deal with in the valley. So those services are being enhanced, so look for that in the future, less traveling for people that, you know, to go outside for professional help. They're interested in having these meetings continue semi-annually or annually. Is that something, Heather, that you can, or Christy can do, keep that contact? And I think at the very minimum, have those contacts at least yearly. And I think the staff that showed up, we had a very good turnout with, I think, everyone here. Pat, Amanda, Chief, and Heinz were all there. Very good session, very good communication, possibilities for training for our police officers and for their staff as well. So it was a very productive meeting, and they're a really good partner. So I think we need to continue that relationship. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Coleman.
I also would like to let Heinz and his team know that I received a lot of positive feedback from people in the community in regards to the dog park and the direction that you're going, and keep up the great work. And on the tennis court issue, I've had people talk to me about the tennis court issue as well, but you know what? They're really happy that something is being done, so don't get too stressed out about the timelines and things like that, because they're just happy to see that we are moving in the right direction.
Thank you, Councilor Coleman. Councilor Stefano?
I just wanted to say that that CML conference was really great. I learned a lot about a lot of things, and Councilor Russell was saying about the hospital meeting. That was really great to learn about what's really going on with the drugs, the prescription drugs and stuff like that, how they're nipping it in the bud. And it was really great to attend.
Thank you, Councilor Stefano. Any other council comments? If not, I've got a couple. Councilor Griego has asked to be placed on the Housing Authority. I talked with Eric, and I also talked with the director of the Housing Authority, and I have absolutely no legal standing to appoint anyone to that Housing Authority board. The only position that I can appoint someone to will be the liaison from City Council, but I cannot appoint a person to that Housing Authority, so I cannot appoint you, Charlie. That's going to have to be something that the Housing Authority is going to have to deal with.
Well, according to this advisory board list that I got here, it states that Housing Authority, Charlie Griego, Mike Stefano, alternate. So is this correct, or is this wrong, or this is what we voted on here?
No.
That is referring to is when we had the retreat and you guys had the discussion that was based on the
And it was
note.
finalized.
And we sent it out. I think there was one correction we received and we've made, and that's the list we've been going off of from that
But
discussion.
this is the final,
Yes, that is
right?
the final.
So
That I have no authority to appoint him as a citizen to that board.
That's the council liaison. That's his
Is
council
he
liaison.
the council liaison then?
Yes, that's what
Okay,
that
as a
list
council
is.
liaison, who is the alternate then, Stefano?
Yes.
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, you can, that's fine, but as a liaison, you know what your responsibilities are?
Correct. And
Okay.
a little history, Mayor, I've sat on that board for many years, and the way it's set up, and it's not only here but everywhere else, is the Housing Authority, the people that are on there are, the mayor of that community appoints those positions. And Alamosa, if they want to be different, I guess, they can be different, but that's the way it works. And it's worked through a lot of, we've gone through a lot of conferences, and they emphasize the fact that the mayor of the community does the appointments of all the people. And their term, there's a term, I think there's a 4-year term on each position. And we've kind of lost a little contact with the Housing Authority. And I think that it's important to have somebody on there because of, right now, I think they still have 200 units that we're constantly having to, I believe the chief and his department have had conversations with, so I think it's very important to have somebody on there. We also get a payment of lieu of taxes that comes from those guys. It's always, what, 14,000 or maybe even 24,000, varies, you know. So, you know, there is that connection there. And I think that, that if you choose to do whatever you want to do, that's fine. I wanted to be in there. In the past, we had Counselor Lynn Weldon was the community guy that was appointed to that, and I was the liaison from the council. So this is not something new. This has been going on for years and years.
This is,
and I don't know how you don't remember, Mayor, because you were on the board back then.
I was the liaison, but as a liaison, you have no voting privileges.
That's right. That's why I wanted to be the citizen appointed.
I'm going to have to defer to Eric on that.
I have not, it's loud now, I have not seen the bylaws or the, whatever the governing document, if it's Articles of Incorporation or what it is for the Alamosa Housing Authority, so I don't know how they have that set up, but it's not an arm or a committee of city government. So unless it's set up in its own bylaws or its own articles of incorporation to have the mayor appoint the board, the city charter doesn't give it authority, or does not give the mayor authority, and does not treat the Alamosa Housing Authority as a branch of city government. So I don't know what the Housing Authority's governing documents say. I have not looked at those.
I briefly visited with the director, and she says according to what she knows, the bylaws do not allow the mayor to appoint anyone to that board. At least that's what she told me today. So I just wanted to clear that up, Charlie.
So I think as it stands now, the only thing that's
The
really been
liaison.
done is the liaison.
The liaison, that's
which is
absolutely correct.
Charlie and then Michael as the
And so you are the primary and Stefano's the alternate. I told
believe
her that.
Christie has been in communication with her.
Okay. All right. The other thing I wanted to visit about was the GED program has been reinstated in the valley. We all, here in Alamosa rather, so we're all excited about that. Anna May sent out a communique. We read about that in the paper this morning. Good thing for all of us. And she wanted to thank council for their contribution in making sure that became a reality. The 12th Judicial District will have its July meeting on the 28th at 6 p.m. Heather, if you'd like to attend, I know you're interested in that. Again, we did have a very successful CML meeting, conference. I'd like to congratulate Councilor Gillespie for the award he received on behalf of his attendance to that conference. We all know the Healthy Living Park folks have, I guess, acquired the old Polston site. And so now we're going to have to deal with them and making sure that the rights of way for our citizens are probably met. One of the things that I wanted to bring to your attention, Heather, was somebody said today that the gravel underneath the benches in our park still haven't been done, or maybe some of them have been done, I'm not sure, but we had a lot of mud underneath some of those benches, and so they were kind of thinking that might be accomplished fairly soon. I did receive a letter from Lou Entz, who is a member of the Rio Grande Water Conservation District, stating that on June the 14th, Dave Robbins and Steve Vandiver met with Gary Boyce and his attorney Glenn Pozak. The meeting was held at the request of Mr. Boyce and his attorney. At that meeting, Mr. Boyce informed Mr. Robbins and Mr. Vandiver that he plans to file an application for a new water right and augmentation plan to appropriate 35,000 acre-feet of water per year from the confined aquifer. The well field will be located in Saguache County and Mr. Boyce's property. The water right will be for export to the Front Range and will be sold as a permanent renewable water supply. Mr. Boyce stated that the application is imminent. Mr. Boyce wanted the Rio Grande Water Conservation District to prepare an adjudication, the augmentation plan for the export project, and he would pay the cost of doing so. In exchange for the Rio Grande Water Conservation District assistance, Mr. Boyce proposed to write in the application that he would create a San Luis Valley Assistance Fund in the amount of $150 million. The first $50 million will be available after the application is filed and would be divided among local governments, with $20 million going to schools in the San Luis Valley and the remainder of $50 million or $50,000 going to the counties of Rio Grande Water Conservation District. The district would use the money to pursue Mr. Boyce's application. The remaining $100,000 or $100 million would go to the Rio Grande Water Conservation District for purposes of purchasing and providing the augmentation water necessary to offset any depletions from Mr. Boyce's project. Any remaining funds could be used to purchase and retire irrigated lands to achieve and maintain aquifer sustainability through the sub-districts. I have to read this to you. On June the 18th, 2014, the Rio Grande Water Conservation District Board of Directors held a special meeting to discuss Mr. Boyce's proposal. After receiving a briefing and discussing the matter, the Board of Directors voted unanimously to reject Mr. Boyce's proposal. As of June the 20th, 2014, we do not know when Mr. Boyce will file in Water Court, what the application will look like, the details of the project, who the actual end users on the Front Range will be, or how Mr. Boyce plans to get the water to those users, or who is providing the financing for the project. That's for your information. Seems like the water wars are going to start again, to everyone's chagrin, I'm sure. Anyway, other than that, that's about all I have. Councilor Johnson?
Sorry, I missed a couple. One thing, I had it written down, I missed it. I need to ask to be excused for the next council meeting. I'll be out of town on July 16th. One more request, the letter that you got, Charlie, and the letter you just read, Joseph, could you put those in the read file so I can get a copy of those, please?
Absolutely.
Do we have a read file?
Yeah, it's in the mailbox
Oh, okay.
slot for
Yeah, I
read
had one.
file.
If we haven't been keeping that up, we'll recreate the read file.
All
I'm
right,
not-
thank you.
Christy and I are both new, I'm not sure.
Mayor, I had one more. Sorry to skip it. I want to thank Councilman Coleman for the invite on that housing authority. Well, what is it called? The Housing Coalition?
Yes, it's a Community Resources and Housing Development Corporation.
They had a grand opening. Boy, those subdivisions have really beautified our community. They've taken areas that were trashed and stuff, dump sites, and they put some really first-class houses in there. That really looks nice behind there. So I want to thank you for being part of it and for inviting us on that. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and I want to thank you, Councilman Grego and Mayor Lucero, for showing up and showing your support, and also Councilman Gillespie for coming out there as well. And once again, we couldn't do the work that we do in the community without the help and the effort of everyone in the community. So thank you as well. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilman Grego, Councilor Coleman. What a worthwhile project. Just to see the happiness in those people's faces that have built their home is just, it's, you know, you don't even have words for that kind of thing. But anyway, so are there any other council comments? If not, I will adjourn.